Hi, everyone. Welcome to this ProcessMaker 3 training session, which is part of the beginners training series powered by Diapo Diamond. I am your host and trainer, Afe Araram. For our 14th session, we shall be completing our work on our demo projects. Our focus will be on the 5th and the 6th tasks. Are these the supervisor review and approval task, and then the finance processing or approval task. And that should conclude our demo project, so to speak. At the end of this session, you should know how to create output documents and how output documents can be added as steps to our task. And then how to add validations, form validations to your forms using JavaScript. I hope you enjoyed this session. Let's unpack. In our previous session, we worked on the Dyna form for the initiation task of our expense retirement leg of our process. And we're able to build the Dyna form, set up the necessary JavaScript logic for the form, as well as the triggers needed for the entire task. And then we also set up the email notification templates, as well as the email notification settings for each of the tasks. Now let's move on to our second task and for our expense retirement leg. You can see at the moment that there is no Dyna form here. So we need to create an approval supervisor or supervisor approval Dyna form for our expense retirement leg. So for us to be able to do this, let's clone or export the expense retirement initiation form first. So we do this, so it's exported it. Then we can come down to Dyna forms in our main toolbox, and then we'll create approval supervisor. So we can say Dyna form for the cash advance requisition and expense retirement process to be used at the supervisor approval task of the expense retirement leg of the process. Okay, so save and open. Of course, the first thing we need to do is to import what we exported, the initiation form we exported, and then change a bit of stuff here. So here, instead of report initiation, it will become supervisor approval. Make it a bit, and then supervisor approval. And of course, this will be expense details. First and foremost, let's see what we have here. Then we need to go through the JavaScript to see what we need and what we don't need. So let's check the JavaScript. First and foremost, we are not computing anything on this form. So this function, this event handler is not needed. Then for the document.ready section, we don't need the supervisor to edit anything. So this is not needed. We still need to disable validation for the amount refunded, amount reimbursed, the payment mode, and the transaction reference. And then we also need to allow the payment mode, the radio button group, to be on a single line. And then we may need to add an extra button to this form because we need both a submit and approve and a reject button. So that would be the first thing we'll do, is to split this row into 2 equal columns. And this will be approve, reports. And this will be approve underscore BTN. So we copy what is there and paste here. Next thing we do is create another submit. And then here we put this reject underscore BTN. And here we put reject reports. Okay. So let's save this. Before we check it out, we need to borrow some of the JavaScript logic we added on the supervisor approval leg of the cache advance requisition. The supervisor approval form of the cache advance requisition leg. So let's go to this form. What we really need there would be this CSS for the apply for the buttons, and then the form submission, and then the prevent default logic for the approval the approval reject form buttons. So let's copy this, cancel, close. Now let's come to this task here, and now we can add the ER approval supervisor diner form, and then we can go to its JavaScript, and we could then add this. So copy all of that and then paste what we've copied, and then check that we've not messed up the JavaScript. So we have approve and we have reject, that's fine. Then here, we don't need this confirm that we used before. Since we're now using the Sweet Alert library, we can delete what is there out. Then we change this to expense retirement, expense retirement reports. Okay, are you sure you want to approve or reject these reports? Okay. Then remember, we already have is approved as a hidden variable on our form. So this is nice. Then if you come here, when the approve button is clicked on, we want to call the form submission function. When it is also rejected, we want to call the form submission function and pass in the reject string. So it appears everything looks okay. Let's preview. So we are able to preview the form, so which means we don't have any error in our JavaScript syntax. But if you notice something straight away, you discover that this grid is editable, which is not, it's not okay at all. Even the multiple file upload is also enabled. So we need to come down to our grid, remove the ability to add a new rule or delete existing rules. And then we select it to be totally disabled. Then let's look for our multiple file upload, and we will make this disabled as well. So let's preview now. So everything looks okay. Everything looks okay now. So which means our form and JavaScript logic, so to speak, it's okay for this. Except something comes up that we might have missed out, then we'll need to come back and edit this. But we are good to go at this point. So now that we have this here, there's really nothing to add in terms of the triggers, except to add comments to case notes, and then also update approval sign-offs. So remember, we already added the PHP logic here for those sign-up, but we've not tested it. So when we log in as the supervisor and open those 3 cases we submitted in the previous session or previous lesson, we'll get to know whether what we wrote here for the latter half of this switch function, for the expense report leg, is working fine. And then we'll also get to know whether the add comments to case notes add comments to case notes trigger that we have dragged in here, used for the cash advance requisition leg, is also useful and functional, and in fact, functioning appropriately for our expense retirement leg. Okay, so we saw everything there, and let's just reconfirm that the conditions for our gateway is correct. And we can also confirm on our Dyna form that the is approved variable control is on the form as a hidden control. Okay, so let's check what we've done. Let's go to our testing browser and log in as Audubako. So when we log in, we get to see those three cases. And you can see that their case labels tells us the requests that were initiated at the first task of the expense retirement leg, and the requests that are coming from the cash advance requisition leg. So you could see all of that there now. Okay, so let's open any one. If we open this one, we get to see everything is filled as it should be filled. Then we're going to check if, yes, our comments work. Comments been added to the comment log, and our approval sign-off also is working. So we can definitely see that this works. So let's add, let's approve there, and we can approve this. So we want to also check, sorry, before we approve this, we want to check that our email notifications are working appropriately. So let's come to check our demo account here and refresh. Okay, but we didn't get emails from the submission we did at the initiation task of the expense retirement leg. So let's see what the issue is. If we go to admin, go to logs and emails, we see that they are all pinged. I think the issue will be with our email server. Okay, yeah, with our email server. I'm going to change this. Give me a minute to change this. Okay, so corrected the email server settings and just sent a test email. So you can see the test email arrived, so which means this is working fine. Okay, so we can come here now. Let's submit this to see if the finance officers get an email notification. So what will happen is I'll submit this. So it goes well. Then I'll submit a second one. Submit a second one. Let's submit this one. So as you can see, you can just type approved. Approved, all right. And then submit. Okay. Now, if we check, we see that let's refresh. We see that there is this submitted for this has been this kindly log on to. So there's a problem here in a sense that it is sending out amount expense, and amount expense is supposed to be holding a value. That's an issue we can see right there. There is an issue we can see right there. The same thing for this. Okay, so this is what we're going to do. Let's delete. Then for case 22, we see the same issue as well. Okay. So we'll make a little change to, so let's see. At this task, the first task, we need this, notify the assigned user to this task. This should be used for situations where for rejection emails, email notifications. We want the employee to be notified that their request or report has been rejected. So what we will do is to, let's modify this a bit. Expense retirement case, and then put the app number. Let's see, what else can we do? What if we put the amount expense? Let's see whether that works. So let's go to the end here and put a space and a hyphen and a space. And then put employee name. This is the employee name. Use original type. So of course, it normally goes to, I don't know why it does that, but always goes to the beginning to pull that. So let's paste this now. So reports, let's put what the employee reports. And the employee, of course, is reporting original type of the amount expensed. So it put it right there at the beginning again. Let's cut it. Move to the very end, report this. Okay. So basically what we are adding to this is after the app number, we are adding this part. Okay, so let's save. So the supervisor, the emails we just deleted from here, the supervisor notification, and that is set on this task, and we set it, notify the assigned user to this task. And that's why it's supervisor approval reports, approval for expense reports. Then this is the case, and then the case number. And to give the email subjects more information, we can add that other line copied so that the supervisor from the email subject can know the employee who submitted and what amount they are submitting for. Okay. Then for the finance officers, let's check that that is properly set. Notify the assigned user. So we are saying finance approval for this. Let's add that too. Well, if you see this issue we observe here, go to our trash, is that where this amount expensed is not replaced with the actual value from the case. That's the challenge. That's the challenge we are having. So let's go back and see. Remember, we still have one case here at our supervisor task. So let's see, is our amount expensed, is that value, this amount expensed, this value, is the variable holding a value? So let's see if the variable is holding a value. So for us to do that, remember we are at this task at the moment, and also remember we had a debug trigger that we use for testing some things. So we will put it before the form loads, and what do we want to check? We want to die and dump the amount expensed. We want to die and dump that. So since the trigger is well positioned now for us to do what we want to do, let's open this. You see, there's a value there. So it could be that we're not spelling or using the right spelling for that variable. So let's go back to our trigger. get the copy the name of the variable. Let's go to our email templates and see. So for all the ERs, this was notify a finance ER. So this is the guy. Let's go to the HTML portion of it. And I think this is where the issue is. Okay, you see, it's placed this, separated from the at equal to. So that's the issue. So we're going to remove this and then update it. So let's check the notify, check this one, check the HTML of it. Is there any amount? So there's amount advanced commas. Amount advanced commas. So let's see. So amount advanced comma, you can see it together. So that would work. We just corrected this for finance, but let's check again. So you can see that this is together. Okay. Then let's do that for rejected. Notify rejected ER. Check the HTML. And you see that amount expensed is separated by a bold tag from its selector symbol, variable selector symbol. So let's correct that and remove the tag, the bold tag. Okay, so this is good now. The next one we shall check is this one, which is the supervisor. Yeah, check the HTML as well. And you can see the express retirement report submitted by employee name for, this is correct. The variable selector prefix is together with the variable name. So that should work. Let's save that. Then the end event email, let's check. So hi, employee name, your expense retirement for, so this is together, you can see, so this will work, has been processed by finance. See details below. And then we have this, so these two should work. So I think that would solve the problem that we have. But the use tests we want to do now, let's ensure that our debug trigger is no longer there. Let's remove it. We use it for the purpose of checking what the issue was. And now let's reload frame. Okay. But this time around, we want to reject this. So we want to test rejection, the rejection path. We've seen that from the supervisor, when we approve, it goes successfully to the finance. The only challenge we had was that the email notification that the amount expensed was that variable in the email template was not being replaced by the actual variable in the process or in the case or request. So we've solved that tentatively. But first, let's check if our rejection path, our backward path, is working correctly. Now, if we click on reject, of course, we should be told by the system or by the process that we need to provide comments. So let's just put the comments as testing the rejection path. Okay, so we reject now. Yes. So you see, there's a problem. There is a problem. See, we just noticed one now where we are having supporting documents. So this field should be, that's why it's good to test. That field should not be required. So let's uncheck that, save this, and go back here and reload frame. Okay. So that should not be a problem anymore. Let's say, put the comment again, testing the rejection path, and then we reject. So you can see it's going back to the employee, and let's do that. And so let's check if we got an email notification. If we refresh, and it's taking a bit of time to land. So it's here now. So experiment case this, report 700. And you can see your expense retirement case for this has been rejected and returned to your inbox. Rejection reason, you can see that quite there. Okay, let's delete. So that it's working fine. All we now need to do is log in at the employee, Anu Bello. And then we can submit this again just to so you see another issue again. See, originally, when this was entered or imputed, you'd see that no receipt was attached. But now this, by default, is set to be required, right? So how do we solve this? Because right now, this person will now need to re-enter this value again for this field to become not required. One way to solve that is to go and ensure that from our very first form, so sometimes when you test as you work or build, you are able to discover certain aspects of your design that you've not thought of that could be bugs in your process. So what I need to do, we already have a function. We already have a function, this function that is used on certain change on the form that is called, and then it validates whether that supporting document multiple file control is required or not. So all I need to do is call this function. Let's see if we call it without passing in these parameters. Will it work? Because we didn't pass it here. So let's see. If that doesn't work, there's another approach we can use. So in our document.getReady, we would we'll call that function. Let's see. If we save, let's preview. See the problem? So this will not work. So which means the best approach would be when we load the form, we'll need to disable validation. We need to disable validation. So we add it to this list. And then we remove this one from here. Save, let's preview. So preview now, so it's working fine. So we can go back to where we are testing it and reload frame. When we reload frame, then we see that we are able to submit. And then we can log in now as as Audu Bako, the supervisor. But let's check, did we get an email notification for the supervisor? Yes, we got for the supervisor. You can see that this is working fine now. So let's delete that. So far, so good. We've been able to work on this, on the We've been able to work on the supervisor approval task, and everything is working as they should work. So next up, let's work on the finance officer processes expense report task. And for this again, we need a Dyna form, which we don't already have. So we would need a clone of the approval supervisor form for the expense retirement leg. So let's open this and let's clone it. And then we would create a new Dyna form. And for this one, we will call it expense retirement approval finance. So this will be Dyna form for the cash advance requisition and expense retirement process used at the finance approval task of the expense retirement leg of the process. Okay, so let's save and open. So what we first need to do is to import the ER approval supervisor Dyna form we earlier exported. And then we can edit this to taste now. All we need to put here is finance. And let's preview. So there are things that we now need to check out here. So one of them would be what fields are to be worked on by the finance officer. That will concern the fields in a finance section of the form. And again, there is no approve or reject for this particular task, so we don't need two buttons. So the first thing we need to do is remove this button. Then because this button is in the first column, we can merge the two columns together. Say yes. And then we change this from approve BTN to submit underscore BTN. Sorry. Copy, then paste. Then say conclude reports. Okay. Conclude reports. So let's see, before we do that, let's check the JavaScript and then ask ourselves, what is it we don't need? Okay, so first we need to determine, it will be better to use a function to determine what should show, what should be displayed in the finance section. So I'm going to select this comment section head, copy, and just put, let's call this toggle function. It's going to toggle what should show and what should not show, depending on the context. So determine display of finance section on form load. Okay, so I want a function that I will call, let's say, set finance section display, something like that. Okay, so set finance section display. Okay. So before we do this aspect, let's check what we would need. For document already, we don't need all these ones here. They will be controlled by the function up. So I'll just cut this out for now. Paste them here first. Things will still change there. We still need our payment mode to the radio button group should be on one line. Then for our button, we only have the submit button now. So this will change to submit underscore BTN. Okay. Then we want to be able to call this function to set the finance display when the form loads. So I'll put that there too. Put that there too. So for now, is there any other thing that we need? I suppose we don't need all of this here. Remove. We can save and then go to copy the one we have for the corresponding task for the cash advance requisition leg of the process. So let's go there. Okay, so we can take this. Let's see. So we are here now. We only need to add the form. This is ER Approval Finance. And then we can edit the JavaScript of the form. So let's add this. Okay. So for the form submission, we just want we change this to title first, expense retirement reports. So we don't need this part. Okay, so are you sure you want to conclude this report? So just make it a question. Yeah. And then we don't need to pass in anything now. So we're not passing in anything. Basically, everything remains. So here that we're passing in the employee name, we don't need to do that anymore. Okay. So for now, this is it. So one major thing we need to do would be to determine how the form should look in terms of the finance section. So let's see that our JavaScript has no syntax error at this point. Okay, so since we have this here, let's do a bit of testing. Let's quickly submit this to the finance leg. Let's approve it. So we can now log in as the finance Abiola.Adeoye. And if you check now, the unassigned, the 3 cases are there. You can pick anyone. If you pick anyone and we claim that case, you get to see that the amount refunded at the finance task should be a required task. But all these 4 fields here should be required. So which means the first thing we need to do is go to our JavaScript. And all this that we did here, let's just comment them out. We'll still need the names of the variables. Let's comment them out. Okay. Now, let's save. And then let's reload frame. So they are required now. So this is the thing. What should be the value of the amount refunded and the value of the amount reimbursed? It's a good question. Remember, for our cash advance requisition leg, we used a trigger to set or preset those values. So if we come down here and check, you see that we had the preset, the amount advanced. So we want to take advantage of this trigger and use it for multi-purpose. So this name cannot remain. What we want to now change it to will be preset the finance amount. So let's see. Let's go to triggers, and this is the trigger. So instead now we'll call it preset the finance amount. Okay. So trigger for the cash advance requisition and expense retirement process to preset the finance related amount fields at the finance tasks. Okay, so let's save this first. So we want to call, we want to call that trigger here. But first, before we start using it, we need to check what it contains. You see, what was here originally is that at the finance disbursement task, then it would preset the amount advanced commas and the amount advanced variable as well. Then even set the dates advanced field. Okay, well, let's see. For us to be able to use this trigger for both finance tasks, then we need to use a switch that considers the task UID. So which means we need the task UIDs for both finance tasks. Okay, so let's save this and quickly go to grab those values. So for this task, go to properties. This is the UID. So let's copy this and let's paste it here first. So that's the first finance task. And so the second one, let's take properties again. This is the second one. Let's copy it and let's paste here. Okay, so cancel. So at this point in time, let's go back to the trigger. And so we now need a switch. So a switch function rather. So switch, and what's the condition? What are we testing against? We're testing against the task. So we're going to select that. And then case, what's the first case? The first case would be the task UID for the first finance task. and we put in the value here, whatever the logic we need to put there, and then we put a break, right? Okay. Now, the second case would be the second finance task. So we already have the UIDs here. So this is the first one. We'll put it here. And this is the second one. And we will put it here. Okay. Okay. So here again, we will put in some logic. And then, of course, we would break. So what logic, let's look at the logic that was there before for the first finance task and ask ourselves, is there something we can do? So yes, we're going to tab these insights to correspond with what is there. And then we can cut this. And then paste it here. So this is what will happen at the first finance task. Then for the second finance task, there are two variables that we will be setting: the amount refunded and the amount reimbursed. So let's quickly set that up. That's going to happen at this line 15. So we want to preset the amount refunded. Preset the amount refunded. So if amount refunded is empty, if the amount refunded is empty, then amount refunded is equal to amount to refund, which it's already evaluated at the initiation task of the expense retirement leg. So amount to refund. So that's that. We don't need this other line. Then we also need to preset that of the reimbursement once as well. To present the amount reimbursed value only once. So that's the same thing we're going to do here. So let's look for reimbursed. So it will be amount reimbursed. That's the value. If it is empty, then we set amount reimbursed to amount to reimburse. So let's search again for reimburse, amount to reimburse, that we put in there. Okay, so this should work. This should work. So let's save this. Remember, it's already at this task. We've already positioned the trigger before the diagonal form. And so let's see what happens. We'll go to where we are testing it. Remember that these are still empty. Amount refunded, amount reimbursed are empty. So the purpose of that trigger is to populate them. So let's reload. And when we go down, you see that the values are there now. Okay. But we want to give opportunity to the finance officer, just like we gave that opportunity at the finance disbursement task, that when an employee requests for an amount X, the field is preset with the value. The amount advanced field is preset with the value X, but the finance officer has the ability to change that value and say, okay, the employee is requesting for an advance of 10,000, but based on the maybe cash in hand or the approval limits or something, I can't give this employee the 10,000 is asking for. I can only give 8. The same thing, we want to give that, provide that kind of functionality here. That if there's an amount to refund, the finance officer can choose to give a lower amount. That's why we are having two fields. So there is the amount to be refunded, and then the amount refunded, which is this is actually going to be whatever amount is here that the finance officer chooses to be there is what he or she will actually refund, that the employee will need to refund to the organization. And if for reimbursement, what the organization will reimburse the employee. We want to give that functionality that the finance officer is able to do those changes. So which means that if the value of any of these two fields is a 0, then that is not a field the finance officer should be able to modify. However, if the amount in any of these two fields is not a 0, then that field should become editable, editable by the finance officer. In addition, if these two fields are 0, there's nothing to refund, there's nothing for the employee to refund the organization, and there's nothing for the organization to reimburse the employee, then there's no need for the payment mode to be required because there's no refund and there's no reimbursement. So there's no need for that. And there's also no need for a transaction reference. The only time we would need the finance officer to indicate the payment mode and the transaction reference is if there's either an amount to refund or an amount to reimburse. So we need to use JavaScript to handle all of that. So let's go back to JavaScript and then go to that function we said we use to control how the fields in the finance section are displayed. So we'll start off by saying, let's empty refunded equal to, so we want to get this guy. So amount refunded gets value. So we need that. Then we also want to get the amount reimbursed. So we can copy this. Then so amount reimbursed. And then okay. So remember now that these values have commas. So we want to be able to remove those commas. So we do a little massage the values. And so in other words, our amount refunded will now be equal to amount refunded dot replace. We call the replace method. And in here, we want to replace every comma with an empty string. But in other words, what we still have here is going to be a string. So we want to pass float it. We want to pass float that. So this should work. We'll repeat the same thing for the amount reimbursed. So let's copy and paste this and then copy the amount reimbursed variable name, paste here, sorry, undo, paste, and paste, correct. Okay, now we have that. We'll then need to, so if what exactly now? If amount refunded is 0 and amount reimbursed is 0, so that's what we want to do. If is equal to 0 and the amount reimbursed, if amount refunded is equal to 0 and amount reimbursed is equal to 0, then it means there's no need to indicate a payment option and a transaction reference. So we would disable validation for these two fields. And what are the two fields? Payment mode, so we'll just copy what we have here. So we'll disable validation for those two, okay? Else, it means those guys, they are required. So we do an else here. They are required. And not only are they required, remember the required property is already set. They need to be editable. So say make these two fields editable. And so we need this. Let's copy this. But remember, we'll need to use a get control and then concatenate it with the attributes method and pass in disabled, and that will be false. So we need that field enabled for, so let's now enable these two fields. Okay. So the same thing should happen to the transaction reference aspect. Okay, so we have payment mode, then get control, and then the attribute disabled false. Then for transaction reference, we get control attributes disabled false. Okay. Now, remember, if either one of them is talking about the amount refunded and amount reimbursed, if either one of them is not a zero, then we need to determine which one should be editable by finance. So let's remove all of this that we have here now. Everything else that needs to happen happens within this else block. So we need to determine which amount field can be edited by finance. And here we say if amount refunded is not equal to 0, then where's the copy the name of the ID, target it using jQuery, come and put it here, and then we add the get control dot attribute. Copy, paste. Okay. So we repeat the same thing for the amount reimbursed, which would be this. Copy the ID, come and put it here, and copy this variable name, put it here. So this should work, but let's see if our JavaScript has any syntax error. So no syntax error. And you can see that, so let's see if it works. Let's go to where we are doing our testing. So this, we have amount refunded as not zero. So that field should be editable. And all these ones too, payment mode and transaction should be editable. So let's reload frame and see. So you can see now, this is editable. And then the finance officer should be able to edit these two fields. Okay, we can see that. Let's check the other. This is case 23. Amount reimbursed is zero. So let's check. Is there any other case where amount reimbursed is not zero? Yes. So this one, you can see it's working. The finance officer is not able to edit this, but he or she can edit all these other three fields. Okay. So there is a situation where both fields reimbursed and refunded are zero. Let's see, this should be a situation like that. Yes, you can see that because there's nothing to refund or reimburse, these two fields are not required and they are not editable. Okay. But let's now go back to the ones that are editable. See, this one now is editable. Now, look at something. If the employee, the finance officer wants to type, say, 3,000 here, you see that the comma separator is not working. It's not working. It's not working at all. So we need to be able to add that to this to the diner form using JavaScript. So let's go to where we've done that before. I think we did that here. Let's check our JavaScript for the first finance task. Okay. We use this function, but without calling the function, we could use this. So let's copy that. And come here. And let's go to our JavaScript. So instead of using a function, oh, this spelling is wrong. We'll just use clips directly. So this is what we'll just do. We'll say, oh, better still, let me put it after our function. Apply cliff to the finance related amounts fields. So I would paste that and I copy it, and then we'll just make sure everything is on one line. Okay. Okay. So it's just this field now that we need to change. And remember how we're targeting it then? This is a string parameter. So we replace it with, put a pair of single quotes there first. And how do we target the fields that we want to apply cliff to? We'll first of all get the form, and then in square brackets, amount refunded, amount refunded. We put it within the square brackets, amount refunded. Then we need to escape the square brackets, put slash there. and put slash here. So I hope we are correct. So new cleave, we're targeting the amount refunded text box on the form. And then we pass in the other arguments. Okay, that should work, but let's do the other one first and then see. So we copy this and duplicate it. But this time around, we're doing amount reimbursed. So let's copy that. And then we do this. Okay. So let's preview first to show that, okay, our JavaScript has no syntax error. And now let's go to where we are and reload frame. When we reload frame, we get to see this, right? So let's assume we're typing 7,000. You see, the commas are being put. So that means it's working. It's working on the amount refunded field. Let's check for the amount reimbursed field. Yes, if we're to type, you see the commas. So that means that is also working as well. But one more thing I think we need to do is this. We don't want a situation where, yes, we've given the finance officer the opportunity to edit the field that is not a zero value, but the finance officer should not be reimbursing the employee an amount greater than the amount to be reimbursed. That should not happen. And if it's a case of the employee refunding the organization, the finance officer should not edit the amount refunded field to be greater than the amount that was calculated to be refunded. So we need to put those validations on the form. So there are times when you build forms and you need to validate some values. There are conditions that exist on what kind of values should be on certain controls on the form. And you want to ensure those validations are carried out before the form submits. So at the point the user clicks on the button to submit the form, you quickly carry out those validations. And if there's anything amiss, you return the user back to the form with a valid or intelligent information or warning message or error message, so to speak. Okay, so let's assume in this particular scenario, we do not want the finance officer to be able to impute a value that is greater than the amount to be reimbursed or the amount to be refunded. So how do we do that? So still JavaScript. We'll come to our JavaScript. We'll go to our submit button. Remember, we're already preventing the default behavior of a submit button before calling the form submission function. So we could add more lines of code here. We could say, let amount to refund equal, so let's get value. Remember, it's amount to refund. We're getting it from this amount to refund control. So let's paste that there. I will need 3 more because I will need one for amount to reimburse, amount refunded, and amount reimbursed. So 1, 2, 3. So amount to reimburse, and then this will be amount refunded, and this will be amount, I hope I'm correct, amount to reimburse, amount refunded, and then amount reimbursed. Amount reimbursed. Okay. So amount to reimburse is this. Let's copy it and put it here. Amount refunded is this. Let's copy and put it here. Amount reimbursed is this. Let's copy and put it here. Okay. Then remember that these values would have commas in them. They are strings. So we need to pass them into or convert them into float variables. So as again, we'll need to do some massaging. Yes, we've done some massaging before. So let's just copy this and then go down here and paste. Let's arrange it appropriately. So amount, let's start from the top. Let's just paste a couple of these. Copy, we need 3 more. Okay, so the first one is amount to refund. So amount to refund, amount to refund. The second one is amount to reimburse, amount to reimburse, paste, amount to reimburse, paste. Next one is amount refunded. So which is already here. And the next one is amount reimbursed, paste, and paste. Okay. Now we then check if the amount refunded is greater than the amount to refund. If the amount refunded is greater than the amount to refund, then what do? We create a swirl message using, it's like a prompt on this, that the user will get on the screen using Suite Alert Library. So we call swirl, and we want to give a title. We want to pass in a message, and then what kind of message is this dialog? It's a warning. And what is the title? Put invalid amount. The message, we can say the amount refunded should not be greater than the amount to refund. Something like this, it works. And we stop the submit action from continue, so we return the user back to the form using return false. We kind of repeat the same thing for the amount reimbursed. So it will be if amount reimbursed is greater than the amount to reimburse, then we put the same thing. The amount reimbursed cannot be greater than the amount to reimburse, something like that. Now, it's only when these conditions are all true, then that the form submission function can then be called. So let's save and preview to see that with this, we don't have any JavaScript syntax error. But now let's check where we are testing a reload frame so that it can now have the new JavaScript logic on the form. And let's assume we're putting 100,000 here, which is of course greater, even if we put 33,751 there. It's greater than the amount to be reimbursed. Okay, and then we indicate a payment action payment mode, and just put in a reference. Let's put testing there for now. When we do this, we get this message that the amount reimbursed should not be greater than the amount to reimburse. So that means what we did is working. Okay. Okay. Let's for now assume this should be equal, and we can submit this. Let's just type concluded here. Concluded here. And then we do this. See, it gets to the end of the process. And when we submit, we can check if we got such an email. Let's refresh, still waiting for it to drop. Yeah, so get expense reports for this processed, and then the initiator or the employee gets this conclusion report. Okay, and right here, you can see the amount to reimburse and the amount that was actually reimbursed. Okay, so that works. That works. Let's check the another this other case. This one is refunded now. If we add another 0 here, and let's say this is cash, and let's just put a string there. If we do this, we'll get it. So which means on both sides, it's working. You can also choose by yourself to add this kind of functionality to the first finance officer task, such that the finance officer is not able to put in a value greater than the amount requested. So the employee requested request for 5,000. The system will preset the amount advanced commerce fees with 5,000, but it's editable by the finance officer. And we don't want the finance officer to be able to go there and put in an amount greater than what the employee has requested for. Even if there is a situation or scenario where the finance officer knows that the amount required by the employee is not sufficient, then there is a need to cancel the case altogether, because it's expected that the employee should have done the research necessary to know more. But without canceling the case, the employee can go to spend more and then ask for a reimbursement when it's time to report the expense. That can also work instead of just canceling the case. Okay. But there's one more thing. The part of the requirement is that we want the finance officer task, we want an output document to be prepared based on the data from the request. Remember, we've been able to do this. We're able to modify this trigger before the Dyna form. And of course, we need to be able to add comments. So we will still make use of this add comments to case notes trigger. And then finally, we want to be able to update approval sign-offs. So this should be before routing, and this should be after routing. But it requires that an output document should be generated for every expense report case that the finance officer processes, so that those output documents can then be filed and archived. So how do we go about doing all of that? Remember, we talked about input documents. And remember as well, we said that for input documents, once supporting documents or input documents are defined for a process, whatever documents are uploaded by the users are stored in ProcessMaker's internal DMS, document management system. That's not to say that if your company has its own DMS instance, that you cannot move your documents to your DMS, your custom DMS. You can also do that. It's a matter of at the end of the process, when you can you can write a PHP, a trigger, set up a trigger with PHP logic that is able to get all the input documents that have been uploaded for the case, as well as the output documents that have been generated for the case, and then upload all of that to your company's custom or external DMS. Okay? When I use the word external, that means external to ProcessMaker. However, within ProcessMaker itself, when a case is running, there's this information that is here. If you click on this, you are able to see uploaded documents. And if you go back to information, you're also able to see generated documents. No document has been generated for this case yet because number one, we've not defined an RP document. And number two, we've not added an RP document task step. Because once you define an RP document and you add an RP document step, then the process generates that document. So that is why right now there are no generated documents, even though we have these two uploaded documents, right? So this information button here allows you to access some very important information about a particular request. And you can see the process map. You could see what task is in progress, what task has been completed, what task is pending, and you could see the process information. You could see, amongst other things, the Dyna forms, messages history, case history, the change log. Some of these things will be discussed in our advanced series. For messages, this is where there's a list of you have a list of your case notes. So those comments we've been adding to case notes. Any person who has access to the case can see them. That is why for our permissions, again, if you remember, in one of our previous lessons, we defined permissions. So depending on whether the permission that fits or applies to a particular user that is trying to access the case is that the person should have participated or not. If participation is set to yes or no, that determines whether that user will be able to access the case notes for the particular case or the case in question. And if you check all these we had here, you see that amongst type, there's case note attachment and all of this. These are most of the things you get to see from your information button for any case. And that's why most times when we are setting permissions, except there are situations where you want to set granular permissions, normally we just go with type all. But if you want to set granular permissions, you could then select any of these. It could be that you want to set permissions just for case notes, and the person should not be able to see the Dyna form or the input document or the likes. Then you can come to your permissions and set it in a granular manner. Okay? So now we're talking about output documents. So output documents are documents that are generated by a process. The documents could either be a .doc, a Microsoft Word file, or a PDF, okay? And it's quite similar to the way we defined or created that for an input document before, okay? Now, for output documents, there are times that processes will produce documents that are either stored for record purposes or shared with other parties within or without the organization. So, for example, if you have an assets requisition process, you will need to produce a purchase order that you will send to the vendor or the supplier. So documents that are generated in the course of a process are referred to as output documents in ProcessMaker. So for us to be able to create an output document, quite easy, similar to what we did for an input document. All we need to do is access the output document option on our main toolbox, or also referred to as our process object toolbox. So you can click on the plus button to create, or clicking on it, you can see the output documents dialog, and you can see a list of all the output documents that exist for the current process. And you also have access to the create button. And from this very window, you can click to create an output document. So let's create one quickly. So for this, we're going to call a title. We call it expense reports. And then the file name generated, we want to call it expense reports, and then hyphen case hyphen. We want to add the app number. So let's use original type and select the system variable app number and insert. Okay. Description. We want to just say generated expense reports for filing. Okay. And report generator, we'll leave it as TCPDF. Media with size, we want to use size A4. For attention, you can decide to be portrait or landscape, but for this particular use case, I'm going to go for portrait. And you could decide to leave the margins like this, but I would like to use 15 all through. So 15 for top and bottom margins and 15 for left and right margins, okay? The output document to generate, I want only PDFs. And then I don't want to place some security on the PDF. And so this, I'll leave this as disabled. And versioning, no, I don't want versioning. And then we'll come to the path, the path. Remember when we're defining receipts, input documents, we said that the parent path or parent folder for the cash advance requisition and expense retirement process would be expense reports. Let's just confirm. Let's save this first and go to from here. Yes, we said expense reports followed by the case number. Okay. So and then we put everything into the another inner folder called receipts. For the expense report to be generated, we can just use only this part of it. So copy. We can go back to our output documents, edit, and we can come to destination part and paste that. So it should locate the parent folder for this particular process, which we named expense reports, and then put the report generated as part of the inner folder for that app number or the case number. Okay. For tags, we could just put expense reports and reports. Now we want the file to be downloadable. Should not just open directly. Should be the user or the finance officer should have the opportunity to download the file. Okay. So we are good to go at this point. Then we save this. Now that we've saved this, again, this is a process object, and so it has a process UID. And there's some crazy things you may want to do with the process UID. For instance, a use case could be when the file is generated, you want an email to be sent, and the output document should be an attachment. And then you will need to write the trigger that accesses the particular document that was generated using the UID of the output document. So there are use cases like that, but that's outside of the scope of this beginner series. Okay. So we go back to our task, and then at this point in time, you see now we have our output documents, which can be added as a step. And you can see it is placed here. We can choose it to be before our diner form or after our diner form, as the case may be. We can choose that there are trigger logic we want to execute before the diner form, before the output document or after the output document. We could also use properties to use set conditions to determine whether the output document should be generated or not. Just like same properties you have to set conditions for triggers or for diner forms. Okay. And if you still want to edit, you have the opportunity to edit, insert the HTML of the output documents. We'll get there. So let's open editor. You see that it's empty now. If I go to the HTML, what do you actually see? You see this, right? Okay. Now, I prefer to work using a code editor, work my HTML in the code editor, and then I'm able to move, copy that HTML script into this window or this source editor at the end of the day. Okay, so I have that already down. Don't really want to waste our time. So I have that down already. If we, give me a moment, if I look for desktop training resources, then I go to others. So this is it. If I open this with Visual Studio Code, Visual Studio Code. So I'll have this. Okay. Now, if we look at what is here, from the opening body tag up, if I were to copy this, is the same stuff here. What you see here is what has been modified in here. Because if I were to hit enter here and then come to the top and paste this, you see that it's basically the same. It's VS Code that has formatted this like this, and then the head like this, right? Then the body. And for the body, I'm able to do all this editing. So it's just a matter of editing the HTML. So I will quickly explain what I have done here. You see that we're basically using a table tag to manage several sections of the output documents. So the first table tag is this one here. And in that, we're setting the width to be the width of the output documents, or A4 paper or whatever it is. And that there should be no borders. And then the cell padding should be 5. And we also set the call span. So you see that this row now, this first row, there's only one row in this table. And we have 2 sections. We divide our row into 2 sections. In the first one, we have a call span of 3. And we have an H tag there. And within this H2 tag, I'm putting expense reports, and then case, and I'm putting this app number. So this variable, even the system variable, will be populated before the form, the output document is generated. Then there's something else. I've added, I want to add a logo here. I would like to add a logo here. So I'm using this other section of the table row to set a logo. Now I create an empty line using a P tag, and then use another table to define the expense details section, where I'm then using total call span of 10. 2/10 of that, 1/5 of that call span is to hold the labels like a report date or employee name. And the other aspects, 3/3 of that call span of 10 on a row is used to hold the data for the label. So basically, if I were to copy all of these, we'll make this HTML file available as part of our training resources, along with the suite alerts and the cleave and the numbers utils, JavaScript libraries, as well as the style sheets that we've used for this training series. will make all of that available. So this is not everything that I need. I will need to edit a bit of all of this just to check whether my variables are correct. I have a report date, employee name, employee department is correct. Amount advanced commerce is correct. Expense region is correct. Amount to reimburse is correct. Amount to refund is correct. Then for the expense breakdown, this is very important. If you define a grid, again, we'll use a table, as you can see here. Then the first row in the table is where we are putting the section heading expense breakdown, which when we preview it, you are going to see. And then the next row, we put in the column headings. We put in these column headings. So we're using call span 4 for description, 3 for amount, and 3 for receipt attached. We could change this to 5, 3, 2. Depends. So whatever you use for the column headers should be also what you use for the rows listing the information. And here, before that row, we will put this tag so that ProcessMaker knows that we are referencing these values from a grid variable. So there's the opening tag where we put in the name of the grid ID, and use a tag selector of at greater than, and then we close it out with an at less than. So you can see on line 68, okay? And then the other sections as well. So let's just be very sure that we have all we need. You will notice here, I am using, I used item description here, but here I'm using item receipt label. That's because this is a checkbox. And the key of the checkbox is what I want on the report. So I am having this, the item receipt underscore label, instead of just using item underscore receipt, because the label is the key of that checkbox. Okay, is there anything I want to show us here? Oh, I didn't use amount reimbursed comma, so we need to correct this to be amount reimbursed. And this one as well to be amount refunded. It appears every other thing here is okay, even the approval sign-offs. Okay, so let's save this and Control A, Control C to copy, and let's come back to this place. Control A, we remove what is there, and we Control V to paste. When we update, so you see what we can see here. You see that we've even added the color brand of MSB Cooperation. And how did we do that? For each of these section headings, if I go back to my VS Code, you see that on each row where you have like rows 97 now, you see that we indicate the align to be left, the code span 10, which is the entire code span of the row or the table. And the background color is where we are using, you see this color. This color is the primary brand color for MSB, and then the text color should be white. And that's why we are having this here. But I would like to make a couple of more changes to this to see how it will look like. So let's quickly do that. Okay. First thing I want to do is this logo aspect. So we need to treat that. So let's go to the HTML and let's scroll up. Now, where do we have something about the logo? That should be after the H1 or something, H2. Okay, so this is the H2. And then the next TD element is where we have our logo. Okay. So what will happen is I will have a variable called MSB logo that would encompass all of this. So I will use that to set the image tag itself. Use that to set the image tag itself. So I'm going to delete all of this. So it's just the TD tag there. And I'll put at equal to MSB logo. So which means I need to go and create that variable. I need to register it. So MSB logo, take note of that. Then the second thing, let's just update this first, save this, we'll come back. Let's quickly go to create a variable, MSB logo. Okay. Now, how do we set up the MSB logo? How do we set up the MSB logo? So we need to use a trigger to do this, and it's very easy. So that trigger will then define the image tag that we want to use, basically. So that's what we want to do. And I think one place to put that, this looks like a case constant. So which means if we go to our case constant trigger, we can add something here. Let's quickly do that. Let's do this. Okay. And let's do something like this. Set the MSB logo for use in output documents if any. Okay. So $MSB or not $logo is equal to, let's define the logo now. So let's have an image tag, img, where the source, how do we define the source? Okay, so let's say the source is a URL http://. Now, how do I write this value in such a way that even when I deploy the process from this instance to another instance, this script is always able to get the URL of the server? So, of course, all we need to do is target this system variable, $_server, and pass in the server _name. Okay. Now, remember now we are concatenating this with this value. We're not done yet. Let's continue. So the same logo concatenates with what is already on line 28. And remember that our MSB logo, if you remember correctly, when we're talking about the workflow folder within our ProcessMaker installation, we said, we talked about the location of our workflow folder within our ProcessMaker installation, whether it's a Linux installation, a Windows installation, or a Bitnami installation. Okay, so remember within our Bitnami installation, if we go to see Bitnami, ProcessMaker apps, ProcessMaker htdocs, workflow. Within our workflow, we have our public_HTML, and it was within our images folder that we had dropped our MSB logo in one of our previous sessions. So you see it here. So how do we target this images folder from a URL? So it's quite simple. So here, Once we're able to target the server name along with this HTTP tag, then we are able to now slash images, because it means at this slash, we are within the public underscore HTML folder. So inside images, we have MSB. Is it MSB underscore MSB hyphen? MSB hyphen. MSB hyphen logo.png. Okay. And then within the image tag, remember now, we'll define the height. We can also define the width. Let's define the height to be size 49. Okay. And then we close the image tag. And then this is the end of the statement. Good. So with this now, we can say at MSB logo, which we already defined. Let's type MSB here. Yes, this is the guy. This is equal to $logo. Okay, so maybe we want to now check, is this working fine? So let's die and dump $logo. We'll come here later to test this. Okay. No, let's just test it now. Let's go to Anu below. Let's log in as Anu below, our employee that wants to submit an expense report. So he'll start a new case and go straight to employee submit expense reports. Now, if we start that case, remember we are dying and dumping the value of $logo. So we get to see this. So something is wrong here. Something is wrong. So let's see what is wrong. Let's go back to is constant. Okay, let's see, what have we done wrong here? So, oh, sorry, instead of logo, we type log. Log. So it should be logo. So that's where the error is. So sometimes that's why it's good to check like this. So let's reload through. So you see this now. So actually the URL is this guy here within the double brackets. So if I copy that and click and open a new browser tab and paste this and hit enter, if the URL that you get from your die and dump is able to open the logo, then it means what you are doing is correct. It means ProcessMaker will be able to access that logo and make it part of your output documents. Okay. Then another wonderful thing in our table, if you check our table here, let's go back to our output doc. Sorry, before we go back, we need to remove that die and dump. We need to remove the die and case constants. We need to remove this line, and then we can save. Let's come here now, steps, and then edit the output documents. Now, I think what we've done, we've solved this logo now. It will not reflect in any case or request that has already gotten to the finance task. So that's why I will run another task from the expense retirement initiation task and we'll see how that will look. We'll see how that will look, but this should have fixed it. And all we needed to do was dynamically determine the image tag and then just put the variable holding that image tag here. Okay. Now, the next thing next change I would like us to add. So something is wrong with this is supposed to be expense breakdown. This is supposed to be expense breakdown, but it's not showing as it should. So something is wrong there. Let's get there. go to HTML. So this expense details, if we go down, this expense, okay, so this is the problem. This is the problem, it's right there. So the expense breakdown, I'm going to remove, so this is wrong. We're supposed to use this. That's the hexadecimal color code that we need to use here. So I'll correct this in our HTML documents that we copy this from. Any other thing? Okay, let's see what this change will make for us. So we can see the expense breakdown is here now. Okay. Now, the next thing I would want us to do would be, what if the column rows, the row having the column headings, right? What if we give them a color? And if you check the color, we can take this lighter color instead of the copper gold color, take this lighter one and make that the color of the role having these headings, description, amount, and receipt attached. So let's go back to our HTML and let's locate. So this is expense breakdown. These are the TD tags having the TD tags having column headings, right? But the row tag holding that is this T arrow here. Okay, so I want to add a style, a background color. So let's copy that and come here, space, then paste. I only need the background color. So I'm going to remove that text color. And for this, I'm going to use EEA, I think 86A should do. Yeah, let's quickly see this and see. Oh, sorry, I put in the wrong, it's supposed to be the, so let's quickly correct that. Expense breakdown. So this I put here. So I'm going to cut it off. It should be here. Okay. I want the text color of the column headings to be white. So I will need this again. I'm going to copy this and yes, also after this code span, paste. I don't need the background color. So I'll remove this. So I can copy this now. And then I'll put it here. Okay, so save. So I think it looks like what we want now. So we can check that the values on the output documents are actually populating. And once we've been able to settle that, we'll raise another case. Or since we're already there, let's save this. Let's save this. We're already using the Anu Belo. So let's reload frame. Okay, so let's assume that this time around it's a birthday cake for the CFO. And So birthday cake, 70,000. And let's assume there's a receipt attached. And so for that, we load this PDF receipt, and then submit. So we can now log in as Audubako. And Audubako can approve this. So everything looks good. Approve. Amount goes to finance. So we can log in now as Adeola.Adeoye. Or even at iCiosa.Edeke. I think this person is also a finance officer. Let's check. We'll go to unassigned. Yeah. So can claim this case. So let's assume for this purpose, all this is correct. Let's assume this is correct. I will say concluded. Now, this is the moment of truth. Once you OK this, it will move you to the output document step. So output document expense report, see a description of the output document, and then the grade states, and then you can download. Remember, we allowed for the possibility of the user to download the output documents. So let's quickly download this and see. If you click on that, it opens this up. Let's save this in our downloads folder. Let's save. Okay. Now, so you see the logo is here, and this is, voila, it's correct. But the only thing missing now, you can see the only thing missing is the processed by. And that's easy to understand why, because we've put the update approval sign off here. Now, if we were to put it after the diner form, or we put it before the output document loads, then that value should exist. So let's quickly see that now. Let's go to our downloads. Okay, this is still open. Let's close this. Let's go to our downloads and delete what we just created. And delete all of this. We don't need them anymore. Oh, sorry. Back. Forward. Okay. Let's go back to previous step and then submit this again. And then download the file and see what happens. So as you can see, this is populated now. Okay. So we can actually show that this works. And when we click on next step, the process ends. And of course, the user gets to receive an email notification of expense report for 70,000 processed. Okay. Let's see, is there anything else that we may want to add to what we've been able to accomplish so far? We've been able to complete the form and triggers for the supervisor approval task, as well as the accompanying JavaScript logic for the forms. We're able to create the form for the finance processing task and the JavaScript for it as well, and the triggers, and we even added an expense output report document. Okay. Yes. So maybe one last thing we can do is validations. I spoke about validations for we added some validations to the finance officer task, the second one. And I said you could use your spare time as well to do that for the first. But I think that is something that we can quickly do. We may not test it, but let's see if we are able to handle it. Okay, so come down here. We'll go to the approved finance approval dialer form for our cash advance requisition leg and go to its JavaScript. And remember, before the form is submitted, we want to do some validation. We want to see that the amount advanced value is not greater than the amount requested. Okay, the amount advanced as registered by the finance officer is not greater than the amount requested by the employee. So this is where we'll get to do that. We say let amount requested equal to dollar and get value. And in here, we want to determine amount requested. Hope that is correct. Yeah, that's spelled correctly. So we want to do the same thing for amount advanced. Amount advanced. And then we'll do the same thing here. So amount requested and amount advanced. Okay. Now, since these are float values, we don't need to do any massaging there. So we just put our if condition and say if the amount advanced is greater than the amount requested, then you should send a swirl message or prompt to the form where we want to give, say, invalid advanced amount. And then the message itself, which I'll type in a short while, and that the prompt itself is a warning. It's a warning message prompt. And we want to say that the amount advanced should not be more than the amount requested. Okay. Amount requested by the employee. Oh, so we have that. And then to return the user back to the form, we return false. Okay. So this is it. Let's preview to be sure that we don't have any JavaScript syntax error. Okay. So this is that, and we are done with building our process. I hope you've enjoyed learning with me, following along with this series. We have a bonus session where we talk about some other topics. But before we talk about those topics, we'll first need to run one or two cases end to end on this process to be very sure that everything we have built works accordingly. And then we then discuss a couple of few topics as part of our bonus lesson or our bonus session. So I hope you've enjoyed yourself so far. Thank you for going along this ride with me and see you in our bonus session. Bye for now.